the
This
pledge.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay, do I have to start all over, Jonathan?
Oh, you're good.
Okay, so I will say the pledge. We found out from last time that having everybody do it really messes up the recording, so we're just going to try to have one person talk at a time so that we don't have problems. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for all. Could somebody, we know the previous minutes were like 80 some pages with the way it records. I don't know if anybody printed it out or not. But did anybody have a chance to review those, and do we have any changes?
The one thing that we did do is move all the motions to the top so everybody could easily find the motions.
Hearing no changes, do I have a motion to accept the minutes as emailed to everyone?
Motion to accept.
Second by Jim Barr.
Carol.
Got it.
Okay, so motion to accept and second the minutes. I'm going to ask if anybody is opposed to speak up at this time. If there's no oppositions, then we're going to assume that they're approved. Carol, could you mute, please?
She muted and then she started talking.
Okay, we're not hearing any. We're going to say the minutes of the previous meeting were approved. Jay had sent out the treasurer's report earlier. Any questions on the treasurer's report?
Bobby Simpson will make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Bobby Simpson makes a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Do we have a second?
Dave Sherman seconds.
Seconded by Dave Sherman. Once again, I'm going to go by oppositions. If you're opposed, then speak up at this time. Hearing none, the treasurer's report is accepted. We're going to go on to enforcement list. This is going to take a minute, folks. I don't know if we've ever even had this many before. First one is dated July 22nd. Revoked effective July 6, 2020, assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.16A, 7, 13, and 14. Thomas Dean of Saratoga Springs. Second one, dated July 28th, voluntarily surrendered effective 2/6/20 for violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.15B1 and 800.16A, 9, and 11, Francis Feely from Cohouton, New York. Dated July 28th, voluntary surrender effective 7/7/20 for violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.15B1 and 800.16A2 and 3, Christina Constantino from Bethpage, New York. Whoever's WL, could you please mute the phone? August 4th, 2020, revoked effective 7/13/20 for violation of 10 NYCRR Part 800.16A2, Letitia Wright from Staten Island. dated September 22nd, suspended for 6 months, effective 9/14/20. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000. The civil penalty is suspended and ultimately forgiven with no further violations for 3 years, beginning 9/14/20. For violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.16A13, Eva Santiago of Baldwinsville, New York. September 22nd, suspended for 1 year, effective 9/14/20. The suspension is stayed. Placed on probation for 2 years, effective 9/14/20. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000. For violations of Public Health Article 30, 3006-1, 3053, 3012B, 3012D, 3012F, and 10 NYCRR Part 800.21 JKL, 800.21P, 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 800.23A, 800.24D10, 800.24F14, and 800.26 Bedford Stuyvesant Volunteer Ambulance Corps in Brooklyn, New York. Dated September 29th, suspended for 1 year, effective 9/23/20. The suspension is stayed pending completion of a full PALS and ACLS course within 6 months. Placed on 3 years probation, effective 9/23/20. Assessed a civil penalty of $5,000 for violation of 10 NYCRR Part 800.15A2 and 800.3 AM. Nicholas Walker from Plattsburgh, New York. Suspended for 1 year, effective 9/23/20. The suspension is stayed. Placed on probation for 2 years, effective 9/23/20. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000. Must hire a consultant and provide regular reports to the department. For violations of PHL 3006-1A and 10 NYCRR Part 800.21A, 800.21P6, 7, 11, 12, 13, and 800.23A. Bensonhurst Volunteer Ambulance Service Incorporated in Brooklyn, New York. Issued a formal reprimand, placed on 3 years probation, effective 10/6/20. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violation of 10 NYCRR Part 800.15B, Diane Wagerick from Old Bridge, New Jersey. So those are the suspensions from the state. The other correspondence that I have is dated September 29th, and it's to Debbie Singleton and the REMSCO Council. I will be retiring from SUNY Canton in October and therefore submitting this letter of resignation from the North Country Regional Emergency Medical Services Council, effective today, September 29th, 2020. It has been a pleasure working with REMSCO over the past few years and representing St. Lawrence County and SUNY Canton for the core sponsor for St. Lawrence County on the council. I wish you and the council continued success as you work to serve the residents of St. Lawrence, Lewis, and Jefferson counties. Regards, Art Garno. Does anyone else have any correspondence? Hearing none, we will go into committee reports. Mark Tuttle, are you on?
He's at work. I just
Okay.
got a text from him.
How about Matt? Could you give an air medical report for us, please?
Sure. Basically, everything's status quo for us. We are doing training as requested, ground school training with fire departments. We're in the midst of rolling out our Mercy Link app, which is a flight request app that we're initiating with our 911 centers and then our hospital partners as well. Our education days, both this year, were transitioned to webinar. We're hoping to continue that trend and offer webinars throughout the winter. So stay tuned to our social media and our email lists. Overall volume, surprisingly, during the pandemic has been doing exceptionally well. We're 20% actually ahead of the curve for scene volume. So we're overcoming that expected lull in calls based on the COVID pandemic. But other than that, if anybody's got any questions for me, feel free.
Thank you, Matt. Do we have anybody on from LifeNet?
Negative.
Thank you. Auditing, hasn't really been much to audit 'cause we haven't really spent a lot of funds, but we're making sure that Jay is getting the monthly reconciliation statements to Jonathan. He's reconciling and I am reviewing and signing off on those. Bobby, anything under bylaw?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. The next thing is CON, and we had a meeting on Friday about this. It was Ann Smith, myself, and Mark Devers, and we were talking about Turin Ambulance and addressing their territory issue. An email came out from Dana saying that they really wanted to see their territory better described on their CON. And since we aren't tentatively scheduled to meet again until February, I would like to discuss this here. So what I'm looking for is a motion to approve Turin Ambulance Inc.'s clarification of territory as reads below. North Town line at the center of Route 12, southerly to the Village of Lions Falls line, along Village of Lions Falls line to Town of Leyden line, thence westerly along the line to center of Route 12D, thence northerly to Potter's Corners, thence northerly along the center of Route 26 to Powell Road, thence westerly along center of Powell Road to West Road, thence due west to Old High Market Town line, along Old High Market Town line to Town of Turin line, thence easterly along Town of Turin line to point of beginning. And maybe that means something to you folks over in Lewis County, but I have no idea where you're going, but I take it that they do.
This is Bob. I tried to clarify that a little bit by sending a screenshot of our CAD and the way it looks on there. And I believe I sent that to Ann and Jonathan, and hopefully that helped clarify a little bit exactly what all that meant to everybody. And Jonathan, if you want to, you can feel free to forward that with the notes if you'd like to.
Okay. So we were going to make sure that the paperwork for the clarification of territory is done, and I'm looking for somebody to make a motion that we would approve this. And this does not require a stenographer because it is a clarification of territory. We reviewed that state policy, and that's spelled right out in there.
Being familiar with it, I'll make that motion. It's Bob.
So Bob McKenzie makes the motion as read. Do we have a second?
Dave Sherman will second.
Larry Gerard, second.
So choose your person there, Jonathan, either Larry or Dave, since they both chimed in at the same time.
Dave spoke first.
The CON for Turin, the funds have been returned. There wasn't a lot of expenses there. The main expense was the court stenographer, which we knew, and she was paid, and the funds were returned. Anything for the CON committee? Anybody have anything that they're aware of that's coming down the pike that we need to be aware of?
Debbie, should we do a roll call vote on that just to be sure?
We certainly can do that. Jonathan, could you do that for me, please? Since you have the names there, it'd be easier than Dave trying to figure them out.
Do you have it, Jonathan, right there? I do if you don't.
I have the list right in front of me and I know who's here.
Okay.
James Barr,
Yes.
Michael Bennett, he's here. Mark Dalton,
Abstain.
Mark Devers is not here yet. Ken Gardner,
Yes.
Larry Gerard,
Aye.
Rich Hughes,
Yes.
Kristen Johnson. You just muted yourself. Walt Lehman, he's here. Robert McKenzie,
Yes.
Jonathan Mitchell,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Lance Ronas,
Yes.
Dave Sherman,
Yes.
Bobby Simpson,
Yes.
Debbie Singleton,
Yes.
Dottie Suter. She's a yes. She has no mic. Bruce Wright, Matt, he's a yes. Matt Yelton,
Yes.
and Mike Bennett is a yes. He appears to be having mic issues.
Jonathan Paul Barter, I had a problem getting on.
And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 yeses with 1 abstain.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to executive committee. 2 things to make you aware of. We're working on trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle that the state wants in the system for our $25,000 that we are eligible for each year. So 2 of the things that they wanted was they wanted an updated MOU for our financials. So we took the one that we had last year, made just a couple minor changes to make it reflect what we're doing. And I have signed that, and that has gone to Erica Flint, the executive director for Fort Drum Regional Health Planning, to approve. The second one is they wanted a memorandum of understanding for the space that we lease from Fort Drum Regional Health Council to have, or Fort Drum Regional Health Planning Organization, to be able to have a place to have meetings for executive committee. We use it sometimes for REMAC meetings. If we have to do a CQI issue, they will meet there. We have a lot of files. We have to keep all the CONs. We have all the equipment that we own and supplies that we typically use at Spring Fling. And it's a mailing address and physical place of business for all our communication to go to. So we had a figure in there of $255 quarterly, and they wanted additional clarification on that. They wanted to see how many square feet we were using, what the annual cost of that square feet was, what the quarterly cost was. So what it worked out to is total cost for the EMS Office 1, which is, I believe that must be where Jonathan is. EMS Office 2 is where Ann's office is. EMS Conference Room, there's a small room off there, is there. Ended up being 698.75 square feet at $13 a square foot, which is a 2020 rate, came out to $9,083.75. for a quarterly cost of $2,270.94. So our MOU portion is $225. The program agency has in their budget that they pay $1,675 for their space, and FDR HBO gives us in kind $370.94. So they contribute that much by not charging us more. So that too has gone to Erica for approval. I'm hoping to have that back in the next week here or so that we can get those uploaded into Grants Gateway to complete the information that they wanted for our budget. Any questions on that?
None
Next,
in the chat.
next is Dave Sherman with legislation.
I don't have a report at this time, Debbie. We did not have a meeting.
Okay, thank you. Carol, anything under membership? Are they beating down our door to join us?
I don't think so. I have nothing to report for this meeting. At least that I'm aware.
One thing that I would like people to think about, that I would like to discuss at the next meeting in further detail and get more input, is look at cutting down the size of the council. We have 30, we have 10 from each area, and we have openings that we haven't been able to fill on some of them. So is it time to say we need to reduce the number? Or is the thoughts of the council that since we're doing so much more of it virtual, that maybe we can get people to participate? So if you could think about that, and feel free to send me any comments you have on that, but that will be on the agenda for the next meeting. Nominating doesn't appear right now.
Debbie,
Yep.
just back to the membership. We did have one request for Jefferson County that I had not forwarded because the only opening is, and we're just kind of waiting on the paperwork, is for a 911 or emergency management represent. Oh my God, I can't even speak now. Representative.
And my understanding from having conversations with Joe Plummer is Neil was to fill that position. But you don't have the application yet?
I do not. I will follow up on that.
Okay. Mark, have you joined us so you can talk about peer?
Yes, I apologize. The struggles of distance learning. At this point, there's nothing really to report for peer committee.
Okay, nothing for peer. Ann, do you want to go ahead and take it away with the program agency and REMAC combined?
Sure. Hopefully, I didn't have much time between the two meetings, so hopefully I will get all of REMAC, or somebody can remind me who was there, but I will start with the program agency report. Momentarily, you should be able to see my screen. Everybody see my screen?
Yes, it's up.
Okay. All right, so attended the Regional Stroke and Trauma Advisory Committee. Actually, the stroke one was canceled due to their one of their reviews that was taking place, but we've done a lot of work outside of the meeting. But for the Regional Trauma Advisory Committee, they met on September 24th. The next meeting is December 18th. And I got a couple slides, the next few slides, on some stuff that they discuss that may be pertinent. So with the RSTAC, been working on a regional public service announcement to highlight the importance of seeking stroke care. Locally, we did this at Samaritan Medical Center with Guilfoyle Ambulance helping us out. So thank you to them and Samaritan. And this is just a quick 30-second clip. I should have for you here momentarily. There's actually it loads on my other screen. I got it going twice here.
From across the region, we work together to provide safe, immediate stroke care. When you need it most. A stroke is a brain emergency. If you suspect a stroke, act fast. F. Is your face drooping? A. Can you lift both arms? F. Is your speech slurred or jumbled? B. It's time to call 911. Don't stay. It causes a delay in your treatment. Call 911 immediately. You suspect a stroke. We're working together safely for you.
So many of the hospitals work together with some EMS agencies. They're currently now looking to get some airtime. So the hospitals are getting together to potentially purchase airtime that are within the catchment area of the Central New York RSTAC. So with SUNY Upstate, Central New York EMS, we have received some funding to create a video education on utilization of the FAST ED to help identify strokes. And we've actually secured funding that will allow us to give a stipend for the first 120 agencies between the two regions who have at least 50% of their providers completed with the education. We probably are looking to shoot this out the beginning of the year. So we're finalizing, some of the stuff and some of the processes right now. A huge thank you to Fort Drum Regional Planning Organization, who will be assisting us with getting those stipends out as we track the agencies as they submit. We'll probably have them do some type of roster that they will have to turn in that we can compare against their providers registered in the system, and it will be first come, first serve for the agencies. So something to look forward to next year. So at RTAC, there was a discussion on trauma transfers. Again, please, for the hospital, this stuff is more for the hospitals. Make sure that you're telling them that it's a trauma patient. They also discuss patients who are already admitted into a hospital, and if they're transferring them and they do have trauma, that they probably need to go to the trauma surgeon on call. So make sure the transfer center is aware of that. And they just kind of gave an example. If the patient has a diagnosis at a referring hospital of crush injury to the thorax and no other injuries identified, this should go to a trauma surgeon, not to the thoracic team. So, and then with the EMS transport of trauma patients, even if they're in our facilities, we should be calling in to give them an ETA. Again, making sure to follow the CDC trauma triage field criteria, and that even if upstate ED is on diversion, they do not close to trauma. So if you've heard that they're on a diversion, it's still appropriate to take your trauma patient there. I believe that is the same with strokes. So agency renewals that we have received since the last meeting, these are their CON renewals. They are listed there, as well as the BLSFR for City of Watertown Fire Department. Fort Drum Ambulance, they approved the medical director change to Dr. Casey Churn. Mark had completed the inspection for the previous approved upgrade of Lisbon Volunteer Fire Corporation to AEMT, so that's been completed. No pad applications. No new regional BLS adjuncts. They did approve the BLS adjuncts that Turin Fire Department had with the transfer of operating authority to Turin Ambulance. Again, they were previously approved. They just rolled over with the transfer of operating authority, and they are currently working on getting their limited lab license under Turin's Ambulance Incorporated, which required them to do a change in lab. So EPCR, again, Morristown has gone live. The other agencies, and I think, I don't know if I remember, Beaver Falls also went live. I forgot that at the REMAC. They didn't make this list, but they may have been on the last report. So, but we have them up and running as well. So again, we only have a very few paper PCR agencies or ALSFRs that are required to submit PCRs. And with that said, on Wednesday, since I get my weeks right, I had them wrong at REMAC, our office is scheduled to be trained by the state on their new New York State EPCR portal. So agencies will no longer be sending their paper PCRs to us. They will submit directly to the state through a portal. And they'll have to, this is my very vague understanding of it right now until after Wednesday. They'll have to input some data and then scan the PCR and send it. So what the agency process will look like for that, if one person at the agency will be doing that, or the expectation will be that each person, does it after they submit or when they complete their PCR, but we'll learn more about that on Wednesday. So with that said, again, it may be a good time if you're close to going to electronic PCRs. It's all done automatically for you. And you don't have to worry about this. So CME skills sessions, we discussed, ALS providers will need to complete their second semester skills and half of their annual didactic. I didn't put annual on the PowerPoint, but that was my intention with that statement. BLS skills are still due at the end of the year. We're still expecting agencies to submit scheduled sessions, and I just wanted to wait till these meetings were done in case there was a change, and we'll be putting something out. But for currently approved CME agencies, we expect notification, but we are not posting them on a regional calendar for if they're not comfortable with having others come to their station. So it's at their discretion. And regionally, we will be working to set up skills sessions for providers to help accommodate those that aren't approved CME agencies and who may not have the equipment. So I'll be reaching out to some of the folks in our neighboring counties or in our neighboring counties. I'm sitting in St. Lawrence County right now when I say that, but so in Lewis and Jefferson, to set up some sessions there that folks can get to if they can't get to, if their agency is not an approved CME agency. So one of the suggestions was to, make appointments on the hour basis, and they come in for their appointments. So you only have a couple providers there at a time versus having a large group. EM resource, we've been working with Jefferson County Emergency Management to get it implemented into the 911 center. We're currently working with them on their policy on notification. Our hope is that we'll be able to, within Jefferson County, be able to work and come up with a date when everything will go live with that. So all diversion notifications will go through the EM resource system. Jonathan and Tom were able to come up with a way that they can actually route the diversion notifications out through their third-party vendor, like I Am Responding or Active 911. So that saves the agencies a lot as far as putting people in. So in Jefferson County, we'll be reaching out to you to get that third-party email address or permission to get it from the 911 center to help get you set up. There's been some other good uses discussed with this, even on the fire side as well. So, and then we'll start working with Lewis and St. Lawrence County on this, see how Jefferson goes. Our opioid prevention program, we've been working with the Tri-County Public Health and OD MAP initiatives. We're sending daily reports to St. Lawrence County, and we're also sending reports to Jefferson and Lewis counties as requested. And at this time, we still have Narcan. I'm not sure whether that, I don't know how long we'll be able to continue to get it, or if that grant program will be opened up. We're waiting to hear again. So one of the other discussions were about changes that the state made at the AEMT level. They put a deadline, or they put a date of September 2020 for them to take effect, and it goes back to the national curriculum training, because at the national level, they were in the process of changing the scope of practice. So they have changed the scope of practice at the national level, but they don't have the curriculum done. So as a result, there's some confusion as to what AEMT should and shouldn't be doing. The state has told us to continue to operate as is until they have an opportunity to address it or the curriculum gets updated. I'm not sure where that's going. But that was, for example, intubation was one of the things we knew was going to go away. But the other one in there was epinephrine 1 in 10,000 IV push for cardiac arrest. Under the old curriculum, that's not allowed. That was a New York State add-on. So these things are a huge gray area right now, but because they are in the protocols and they have not gotten any clarification, we're going to continue as is for right now. I'm hearing a lot of challenges with the purchase of medications due to the Drug Security Act, which is a federal act. I put together a nice email. I sent it on to the ops email address at New York State DOH just to ensure that they were tracking and aware of this locally, and with support of the REMAC. We're going to work with the hospitals that aren't supplying or haven't made agreements with agencies to see if we can help facilitate obtaining medications in a more cost-effective manner. So for anybody who's not familiar with what that is, it basically says, instead of buying 1 vial of epinephrine, or 2 that you may use through the year, you have to buy 10 or 25 or whatever the lot size is, which certainly increases the expense. And even though we're good about sharing stuff here in the North Country, those are things that you're not supposed to be sharing because you are not a distributor. Again, actually, we've been working on some course sponsor stuff. Debbie, are you going to talk about that later?
You can go ahead and we can discuss it here under
Okay.
this.
So
we have an AEMT question.
Yeah.
Or Mark Dalton, go ahead with your question.
Regarding second semester skills, can a AEMT evaluate a paramedic on any skills, or are they to be evaluated by a paramedic for all skills?
So because we have so many critical cares can evaluate it. And again, when these sessions come in, we approve who the evaluator is. So they should have some type of instructor credentials. And critical cares can evaluate any skills regionally. This is not the same with the state. So please do not confuse the two. That are within the critical care level, but it needs to be a paramedic for any paramedic specific skills. Now, the state CME program is something different. And that's where you need a paramedic to do any paramedic skills.
So for second semester skills, if anyone was signed off by a critical care tech as an evaluator, as a paramedic, he, she, or they are only able to claim that for regional skill competency, correct?
Correct, because for state CME program, it should be paramedic.
But Mark, you still need a paramedic because the second semester skills have the needle crike. So you're gonna have to have a paramedic to be able to do that skill.
Surgical airway or needle crike?
Well, surgical airway and the PED IV.
Intubation.
Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now you got to make sure you keep the two of those separate. All right.
Please clarify, Ann, those two separate.
Regional skill requirements versus New York State CME skills or CME recertification requirements. Two separate.
Thank you very much.
All right, so course sponsor, SUNY Canton has notified the REMSCo that they are no longer going to be a course sponsor. They sent in a letter to the Department of Health and the region. Currently, so the class that got postponed, part of it because of the college students leaving in the spring, that class has been completed. For St. Lawrence County, SUNY Canton asked Jefferson County this semester if they would do a course, and they are currently sponsoring the course that's being held at Governor Rescue. And they'll talk about that under their report. And so the region is currently working on that. We do have some interest for another course sponsor, but the state is not approving new course sponsors at this time. But I have spoken with Jefferson County, so probably in the spring they will be hosting classes in St. Lawrence County again, and we'll be working on that. Or at least we hope they will, so we'll have to be really nice to them until then.
And this is Paul. Just so you know, Art did send us the letter of request, and that's been signed and sent back. So we're still in the process of looking for a site up in St. Lawrence County.
Good.
For January.
I think I may have one for you. Okay, and then
and hold on, I want people to understand also that because that class that was going on at Canton, they had to delay it because all the kids went home. So they finished that, and Anne and the instructor and the people that did the labs all did that and donated their time to help get that class finished so that those kids could get through. And I know we talk about frequently, we don't do it for the money. We do it because we want to help get kids through. And that is a true example of that happening up there in St. Lawrence County. The dedication. And what was the instructor's name?
Tyler Clark.
Tyler Clark and Ann and Mark Devers and a bunch of lab people. and Chrissy, they all went in and they worked with these kids because, as you can imagine, they'd been away from it for a few months, and they went in and they worked with them on their own time and helped them be able to complete the class. And I just want people to recognize that, they did that on their own to make sure that those kids in that class got through it.
Thank you. So moving forward from there, we are going to be sending out the Part 800 changes, the proposed Part 800 changes, because the state is going to address them again. We sent them out really quick because all of a sudden they popped on last state EMS meeting agenda, but they didn't do anything with them. So we're going to ask agencies to please look at them very carefully. Some of the items on there are a little excessive. And again, this is supposed to be a minimum equipment list. Like they added chest seals on there. And I think, I can't remember the exact number, but there were like 4 or 6 of them. And I would venture to say that since there's so many other things you could use for a chest seal, most of the people actually don't have commercial chest seals on there, and that's what they're looking at. That can come into quite an expense for an agency, and they do expire. And some other things on there, like, the portable carbon monoxide detectors, while they're not overly expensive, but for some of our smaller agencies, that could be a significant cost for them. So really, please, when we resend this out, go through it with a fine-tooth comb. We have some of your comments from last time. Some of them may have gotten a little lost in the shuffle, I will admit. But we want to just get a good take on this. We have already submitted multiple concerns to the committee at the state level that's working on this. So we just ask that you look at it really, really closely, and really, even better yet, really push it to whoever is doing your rig checks or your supply ordering, because those are the folks that are, really going to know what they're throwing out a lot of, or, what's on that list that maybe wasn't there before. There's just some miscellaneous stuff we've been doing. Again, I'd like to say that we do not have an approved contract, but we are at the determination waiting for approval. They have a new process. As of today, we have not been paid for our 4th quarter ending June 30th, which was under an approved contract, and all the paperwork submitted on time. But the good news to that is through the state financial system, we received a PO today, which usually means we will get paid with it in about the 30-day time frame once that PO comes through. And we've been waiting for the PO to go through since the beginning of July when the voucher was submitted. So they are only currently reimbursing course sponsors and potentially us. We won't know until we get paid. At 80% with 20% in review, whatever that means. A huge thank you to Fort Drum Regional Planning Organization. They are continuing to support us, even though our funding is not moving through fastly. So that's the program agency report. So from REMAC, we reviewed the submitted protocol changes through the portal that's on our website that allows everybody to have an opportunity to submit. One of the things that was noted by the Collaborative Protocol Committee was that we had a lot of great submissions. People put in submissions and they put in the medical literature to back up what they were asking for. So there was a lot of them because we had not met due to COVID. So I'm not going to go through all of them right now. And they were sent out to all REMAC members for any comments to come back. But one of the things, which was actually submitted by a provider from the North Country, so is a project for the treatment of nausea and vomiting using isopropyl alcohol preps. So we're going to work on putting a project together and maybe doing a little project with that. The other one is there's a lot of interest in transaminase acid or TXA, and they're looking at working on creating a protocol for that in conjunction with the State Trauma Advisory Committee. And we had previously, when another region was going to do a demo on this, we're going to get involved in that, and that fell through in the other region. They didn't get that off the ground. So Dr. Cartier is asked to kind of be involved in that. So I'm going to do an email introduction. At the last REMAC meeting, they approved to move forward with the addition of 12 lead BLS ECG acquisition. And I put together all the paperwork and forms and necessary items as per the policy statements and continuous quality improvement and standard operating guidelines. And there was an educational program and a test. A lot of this was done, South Jeff Rescue did a demo project. And so I just kind of moved things around to make it meet a regional need, because not each transmission of one would result in a patient being moved to another or diverted to another hospital or to a cath lab. It may just help identify a transfer earlier and or the hospital to get thrombolytics ready, or maybe it would result in air medical being activated by the medical control physician. So it'll be interesting to watch the data as we move through with that. So those were approved. It was approved to remove the 8.5 and size 9 ET tubes from the regional minimum equipment list. We had some discussion on RSI. We're going to get some stuff sent out to the physicians for agencies that have submitted applications and members. Testing has to be done annually. So we tested providers, but no agencies had applied. Now we have agencies that applied. The providers need to be retested for those agencies. So we'll be working more on the RSI. I think that's most of it.
Thank you, Ann. Any questions about the program agency or the REMAC meeting, which was held prior to this? No questions? Okay, moving on. Larry, anything under safety?
Nothing under safety at this time. Thank you.
Mark, REMSCO or CMAC?
So there was a CMAC REMSCO meeting on the 12th and 13th of August. As Ann mentioned in her report, the Part 800 changes will be going out, and I want to apologize. It kind of came out of nowhere at one of the committee meetings, so there wasn't a ton of time to comment on them. Please do take a look and get response back to myself and or Ann. Like she said, there's some quantities of stuff and various items that don't necessarily make sense in all areas. Again, Part 800 is a minimum equipment list. There's nothing that says you can't have stuff that's not on there. There's also nothing that says you that's appropriate anyway, or you can't have additional quantities. So please, do some due diligence and take a look and comment on it. Other than that, there is a legal action being taken against REMSCo in regards to a CON action with North Shore downstate. So more to come on that. That's probably going to have a lot to do with how CONs are handled moving forward. And one of the big issues at the REMSCo level is there's been a lot of CONs, none from the North Country, but throughout the state, that have been overturned at the state level in the last year or so for various reasons. And so how that affects stuff moving forward is yet to be seen. They hired a new EMSC program coordinator, Amy Eisenhower. She started back in August. So the good news is we're going to see a continued emphasis on pediatric equipment requirements. Again, as that stuff comes out, please, feel free to reach out to me with comments, so I can follow up with Amy and other people at the state with comments. Vital Signs is virtual at the end of this month. It will be next year, November 11th through the 14th in Saratoga again. There was some medication actions at the CMAC. Tributylene was added to adjunct with epi and COPD and asthma as an alternative to nebulized albuterol or duonebs to avoid aerosolization. Scope of practice was of nasopharyngeal swabbing as well as immunizations. It was basically just a statement that they were within the scope of practice moving forward. Thermometers, as far as a requirement on an ambulance at this point, they are really a best practice with the COVID epidemic, but as to see it on Part 800, one of the big concerns is the accuracy of them. Some of the especially cheaper ones or the non-medical grade ones have margins of error 4 or 5 degrees, which doesn't do a lot of good. So please, pay attention to what the tested errors are on your devices. IV nitroglycerin is something that was of big conversation, and one of the things holding it back is some Part 800 and regulatory stuff, which has to do with the glass containers in ambulances. It's 800.23. That's come to 2 things. One is that there's going to probably be a regulation to remove that. The other thing is that the department cannot issue a waiver for ambulances. There's nothing in Part 800 or Article 30 that allows the Bureau to issue any more Part 800 waivers for ambulances. For fly cars, that is different. They can continue to issue waivers. So keep that in mind as you're looking to kind of scoot around some of the Part 800 requirements, or especially when it comes to safety options, etc. They're going to be updating the medical shortage policy. I believe it's 1304, as we continue to see an increasing number of medication shortages. Are going to update the formulary. They are recommending, with potential COVID or bystander stuff, hands-only CPR because of the coronavirus pandemic. They're looking at some triggers for various responses to pandemics, including the triage protocol, which has temporarily been suspended. I would expect to see the pandemic triage protocol be reactivated in the coming weeks as they continue to spike downstate. However, that has been kind of postponed, and they're working on a permanent process for that, so the commissioner can trigger that based off of need. They believe they've solved many of the scheduling issues with computer-based testing. They're still working out some of the issues. They were, at the time of the meeting, only handing out certification cards to original students. Refreshers we're going to have to rely on, and refresher and level upgrades we're going to have to rely on the HCS site. My understanding is now they are slowly trying to get caught up on printing the cards. However, there's a significant backlog. They're working on updating the course sponsor manual, and renewals for course sponsors are extended through the end of the year. There is a portal for all education documents to be sent electronically. To my knowledge, last week that was not working. So there's a portal that probably doesn't work. They're working on a listserv and various online apps to improve education, including upping the Facebook closed group and having some various offshoots of it for educators, etc. Finance, as everybody knows, course sponsor financing has been at least temporarily modified. The REMSCOs and the program agencies are having challenges at getting financing, and they're looking at some adequacy with financing. There's some legislative stuff. SB 8196 is a tax credit. SB 3526 is a direct pay bill. SB 8034 is the pilot program for prevention of PTSD. A 10629 is a first responder trauma bill. The state has not moved on any of the ET3 actions, and NAEMT and the American Ambulance Association are working on some various relief options. And that is really the highlights of the meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for the beginning of December. I'm sure we'll shoot out the links for it as they become available. You know, and one thing, and I know Debbie kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, we really need to make sure that we're spending a lot of time commenting on stuff and really participating as a REMSCO, you know, for various, you know, we've got to prove our need to maintain the funding that we're getting. So, and that's the end of my report if there's no other questions.
And am I correct that report will go out? It'll be forwarded to Jonathan so it can be sent to everybody?
Yes. I thought I forwarded it to Jonathan this morning. If not, I will make sure I do it in just a moment.
Yeah, we have it. We're gonna just send it out with the minutes. No need to check. We got it.
What she said.
Training and ed, Paul?
We have nothing new at this point to report.
Okay. County reports. Paul, do you have a copy of the report? Because Chris just left to go on an ambulance call. I have a copy here, but I didn't know if you had one that you could work off.
No, I don't, unfortunately. You can go ahead and read the bullet points.
It's on the screen.
Do you have the screen, Paul, or are you just calling it on your phone?
It kind of comes and goes. So right now, as far as the county, we have several courses underway. We have quite a surprise to us. We had to close down our applications for our Watertown based program out of the public health, the Lewis County program, as well as the governor for St. Lawrence County. Due to high enrollment, we had to shut it down at 35, and we had actually, due to a little miscommunication, end up with 41 for the governor group, not all of which showed up. But our high school class is underway. Debbie's got that modification we presented to the state. So the kids, because of the homeschooling 2 days a week, was making things a little bit more dicey. So we were able to get her class so she actually can get in with the students. We do have our contingency plans in place for online. In fact, the governor class, the vast majority of those students are going to be virtual. And the public health class is gone 50% virtual to reduce the numbers on site. Coming up in the spring, we've already had course approvals for our CFR class, our advanced class, along with basic EMT in the city, and there's a tentative one being coordinated in Clayton at Tiers. We've had a instructor update, which was just completed virtually in collaboration with the Bureau, Liz Donnelly, and we had a total of 58 participants, of which 52 of them were virtual, and that turned out pretty well. We just put on an instructor course for AHA, but we're going to have updates pending the new release of information that's going to be released, I believe it is tomorrow. So there will be requirements for all instructors for updates. More to follow on that. Our OD mapping is going along pretty well. We've got several agencies that are consistently contributing and reporting. One of the things we discussed at our OD mapping meeting with the law enforcement and the DA's office and so on who all participate in this is that we were not getting specific feedback as to what are these numbers doing and so on. So the folks from the Credo Foundation and the Anchor gave reports, and out of, it's approximately 159 individuals, they have approximately 40 of them that have been entered into services of some sort. So that little bit of time that we're doing is making a difference. So hopefully people take that as a motivation, and we continue moving forward with that. The Herkimer paramedic program is up and alive and running. That's actually where I am right this evening. They're having their labs, clinical labs are being done here remotely. On-site classes are to be determined in the near future, but they're still working on the details with that. We participated in the airport tabletop exercise on the 24th of September, simulated a plane crash. The role of our units was pretty limited, simply because the scenario was we were an hour into this scenario when it started. So pretty much all of the EMS triage and sorting and stuff like that should have been completed. So we played more of a monitor, observer, and it was more for the ongoing roles of the different agencies. Fort Drum Tabletop was done on October 7th. Chris attended that. I was attending the OD mapping. I unfortunately went off at the exact same time, and we couldn't be at both places at once. But that went well, according to Chris. They're identifying staging areas in the event of a mass cal. And at this point, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, they're in the process of getting directions developed for the sites that are on post as well as those that are off post.
Correct. I
We
sent a
help-
map to Chris with all that stuff plotted on it, but I'm gonna have more details for you guys so that every rig will have a copy of that. So.
Very good, thank you. Monthly EMS agency meeting was just held, and we're still getting good responses from our agencies and a lot of good feedback. Our rate response or the scratch rate for the month, as you can see, was pretty low, pretty impressive. 2.4 to highest of 4.8. Involved, I think, about 6 agencies but that had any form of scratch rates. So that bodes very well for our providers. And the EMS advisory board, we separated the county combined fire and EMS advisory board at the last meeting, and it's going before the county legislatures to reestablish a true EMS advisory board. And we're in the early stages of that, of reaching out to different entities and people to actually come on board to act as advisors for us. So we got a lot of things in the fire, and we're progressing well. As I stated a little bit earlier, we will be doing a class for St. Lawrence County again. It is obvious that there is a need from the outpouring of applications. And I know there was that earlier discussion regarding Star Lake, and I can tell you, and Mark will have exact numbers, there was at least 4 or 5 individuals from the Harrisville area that are in this course. So they are going to actually beef up their provider field as well. So other than that, that's all I got.
Paul, could you briefly touch on the equipment that we purchased with REMSCO funds and what the purpose of that is, please?
Well, I'll give that a whirl. One of the things, because of the need to go virtual, and Jonathan may be able to help out with this, and I don't think Tom is on the line, but we approached getting equipment, specifically sounding boards, microphones, cameras, things of that nature, so we could do live virtual classes. And to that end, the REMSCO went out and purchased these items and bought actually 4 sets, one for each of the counties. So we have one at Jefferson that is being used weekly. We have one set up at Lewis County Search and Rescue where the other class is, and they're trained on it and ready to go if they need to pull the trigger. And the other set was delivered to Mark and Melissa Brook, who is the instructor, last week. So they're getting ready, I would presume, this week to start doing their virtual classes. But it was a hefty purchase, and one that was greatly appreciated. And we have a spare, if you will, that's shelved right at the moment. In the event that there is a problem with one of the others, we have a fallback. But thanks to this, the executive group that made that decision, it's been a great asset for our EMS instructors and community to keep this moving forward in these trying times.
Good job, Paul. I don't need to add anything to that.
I'll tell you, if Chris was here, he would have all the specifics.
Any questions for Paul on Jefferson County report or training and ed? Hearing none. Is Jonathan on to give a St. Lawrence County report?
I am. So St. Lawrence County's new emergency services website is up. So we have a Bureau of EMS tab on there, and that we're trying to fill in with information relevant, including first response agency contact information and transporting agency contact information. That should be all on there now. I have to reach out to each agency and just verify that all that information is correct. There's also a training tab on there also where we're listing sites where you can get online CMEs for free and paid CMEs, as well as all the training opportunities coming up. We're trying to keep that as up to date and accurate as possible. Our COVID dispatch screening guidelines have been a little bit modified. So if you look towards the end, if you see it on your active 911 or your I am responding, your alerting apps, there's a new question that's been added, which is recent loss of taste or smell. So that's one of the flags now. And there's been some confusion with providers in the field regarding our COVID screening process. I've got a couple emails stating, what are we doing to screen these patients? And is it only if they're quarantined or isolated, which isn't true. We do ask if they're quarantined or isolated, but that's one piece of what we're screening them for. So in our dispatch screening process, we go through a tool called EIDS, which is the emerging infectious disease. And we ask them a list of symptoms. It's a symptom checklist. If they hit certain symptoms on there, I believe it's 2 out of the list, it gets flagged as a potential COVID call, and the responders are alerted to that. There's been some recent concern as well regarding ALS intercepts with stable potential COVID patients. That's been brought up to me recently from a couple different agencies, stating that by the time the ALS intercept crew gets their PPE on, the agency's already at the hospital, or, you know, how do we limit exposure, especially if they're a stable patient and they might not be in need of an ALS provider. So that's another thing that's got brought up. Other than that, that's really all I have for a current update, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Jonathan?
Not a question, but just to kind of add in, because I know that we did a vote regionally to kind of approve it. I don't have an update, but last I knew they had like 5 folks that applied for the paramedic program. I'm not sure if that number increased or decreased, but as of last I knew, they had enough to hold the distance paramedic program with the site at the Potsdam Rescue Squad through the Elizabethtown program. I just wrote myself a note to follow up on that. I don't know if Jonathan, if you've heard any more about it. Jonathan Mitchell.
No, I haven't heard anything else about that. No.
I'll follow up on that.
That's awesome. How about Bob McKenzie with a Lewis County report?
So don't have much to add. Paul kind of stole my thunder about the BLS EMT class at Surge, so we'll just leave him with that. We got 3 weeks. Lewis County will be 100% electronic. Turns go live date is actually 11/3. It got pushed back due to some training issues and some technology issues as well. But after they come on board, Lewis County will be 100% electronic, which is something we were striving for, and we're really happy to see it. Lewis County has a new IT director. Hopefully he'll be able to enhance the web tab for the emergency management office, which does have an EMS tab on it as well. And hopefully we can get some good postings on there. He's also Facebook friendly, which our previous one was not. They think that Facebook is actually a waste of time and a total distraction, and not a good way to propagate information. So we've got some growth on that side of the house. And hopefully we can get moving forward with a Facebook page opened up shortly. So the Fort Drum tabletop, I was unable to attend that. One of the unique dynamics of our county is the fact that we own our own hospital, and there's been a lot of distractions in the office as far as handling things on that side of the house as well. So I regret not being able to go there, and we look forward to the next one. We're starting to get reports from various agencies that there's delays in the Wadsworth paperwork for blood glucometry. In one case, they completely lost the paperwork. If anyone could give some feedback on that and perhaps how to make that a more fluid process, I'd be definitely open to hearing about that. The Emergency Management Office and has assumed the responsibility for the OD mapping. We just recently acquired that from Louisville PD, and we are meeting on a monthly schedule, and all of those meetings are very productive, and we're starting to get some good, reliable information. One of the things that was pointed out was that State Police has their own OD mapping folks down in Oneida, and that's where all of those go to. And there's been some delays in getting those up on the map, and they're working on that. So hopefully we'll be able to get some more accurate information out of that. We're still monitoring the COVID-19 and readying for round 2 in the office. We're working on acquiring additional PPE supplies as we do supply for all the ambulance agencies in the county. One sad note, scratch rates in our county have risen dramatically, pretty much across the boards, and hopefully we'll change that now that summertime's over. It's unknown exactly what caused the spike, but we're actively monitoring it, and we're looking forward to hopefully making some changes on that side and or figuring out what the core issues are of that. And so we're definitely on top of that. Other than that, that's all I got for you. Any questions, feel free to call. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions from anybody for Lewis County? How about John Morrissey from the state? Maybe John, you can give some information on Wadsworth as well and what you're seeing on your end with that.
John was initially, oh, hang on a minute. Hello. Can you speak up and see if they can hear you?
Hi, this is John Morrissey. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you guys hear him?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Couple of things. One, I was unaware of issues with Wadsworth. Would you send me down specifics of that, Bob, and we'll try to track it from our side. The other couple of things that just been ongoing is we're looking at trying to work through the next round of the pandemic and what that does or doesn't mean. The good news is our numbers at times have stabilized okay. Yes, we've had growth rates, but they've been controllable. We're obviously monitoring that and hoping not to have the ENS systems become overloaded by it. Details to follow. No one knows what is going to happen with this. Anybody who says they do got a better crystal ball than our Commissioner Health. However, like anything, you need to keep an eye on the winter as we go into the heating season and people move into more closer quarters that under the issue. If PPE or other issues related to that become an issue, within the same system as included, the Missouri County Emergency Management Office. Mike and I both would like to know here because we monitor that stuff through the ordering system, and we can look at it and kind of make sure needs are getting addressed in the best timely manner as we can. There's been a couple other things going on. I'll just finish this real quick. The Commissioner of Health is very concerned about agencies maintaining appropriate PPE when they are not on calls. If you're closer than 6 feet at an ambulance building, you should be masking. If you're in front of an ambulance, you should be masking. Our people have been out looking at this in downstate quite actively. There have been someone said earlier, there were no fines that have been issued to EMS services. Last I knew, that was still correct. We will tell you that we are fining here in Bradley County for Home Depots, which fining $1,000. Please realize it's more than PPE. People need to have the exposure control plan up and published. There's a template. Anyone needs that, email me. I'm happy to send it out to them. And employees need to know what to do and know what to deal with. So that's an important piece. Take any questions as needed.
Did everybody hear him okay? Any questions?
Thank you, John, for calling in and being part of our meeting and providing feedback and just, keeping up with what we're doing in the region and making sure we're going in the right direction. Going on to old business, CMAC appointment. We're happy to announce that Dr. Matt Maynard, all his paperwork has been vetted and everything is good. And he is scheduled to be voted on at the December meeting. So we've gone a lot of years without a CMAC rep. And Matt Maynard will be representing us soon, a prior EMS provider. So it's good for our region, and he will represent us well. Spring Fling has been booked for the weekend of April 22nd with Janine up at Edgewood. She wanted me to pass on. She missed seeing everybody. She loved having us there and hopes to see us all soon. So we have booked that time for next year with hopes of being able to have our conference again. Is there any other old business from the floor? Hearing none, we will go on to new business. The 2021 meeting schedule was sent out. There is an error on the June. It should be June 14th. That is the Monday, not the 15th. And I would like to entertain that we start with these dates and understand that they need to be fluid, because if they have a state council meeting, say the second week of February, we would probably postpone our meeting until after that so that we could share all the information with you that would be available. The April 5th meeting, that is our annual meeting. That one really does need to happen on that date. But I would like to say that, these would be good dates, but not knowing when state council may be happening, that we would perhaps look at changing them. We have them planned right now at Fort Drum Regional Health Planning on Watertown if we meet in person. And if not, then we would continue to do our meetings this way. Could I entertain a motion from the floor to accept the proposed 2021 REMSCO schedule?
I make a
I'll move,
motion,
Larry Gerard.
Chairman.
Sounds like you got Larry and David.
That's what I was thinking we had too.
That's who you got. Their names lit up on my screen.
Perfect. Is there any other new business from the floor?
Can I have the floor for a moment?
Absolutely.
So again, just kind of going back to what Mark said, we need to start all becoming involved. Our system is in crisis. And, we're not hearing a lot of reports. When we have the REMSCO meeting, we have lot of problems out there within our system. And I've been starting to pull some data and some statistics to start trying to analyze them a little better. So one of the things that they talked about is starting to develop, some protocols, procedures for pandemics. On the REMAC meeting, it was discussed talking about civil unrest or other potential issues that could come upon us, so we are prepared a little better. If folks would like to volunteer for that, or if you have ideas, please reach out to me. We need to get some committees together. We need to really start looking at this, because when I listen, to the reports and just being out there in the field myself, I'm watching agencies struggle. I'm, listening to dispatchers in sometimes toning and not getting ambulance out for, can't even speak, not getting ambulances out right away. I am extremely worried about the mental health of our providers. We seem to, in St. Lawrence County, we seem to have a few providers that seem to be carrying the bulk of the load in some areas. And when I look at some of these agencies, if you take a couple people out of them from, injury, retirement, etc., we're not seeing the folks to fill in. When I pull our regional data, we have 777 registered EMTs in the system. We probably shouldn't have a problem, should we? Right? Again, those are registered EMTs that fall back into, or that are registered in our system. I have them broken out by county. But the true problem needs to be analyzed further, because most of the departments in St. Lawrence County, I'm not sure about Jefferson, carry a fairly hefty roster in hopes that those folks will run one call a year. But you have a small handful, and I'm sure you guys can all figure out who, if you're in with some of these agencies, a small handful that are actually running calls. So if there's ways we can, help these folks or understand why, it may help us with the system. But when you look at it from a high level, we have a true system in crisis, and that's our job as the REMSCo, is to be looking for solutions and help facilitate, possible solutions, plans, and becoming engaged and active in the process. So if there's anything that I can do that would help you guys be able to do that better, please let me know. Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome. Any other new business?
Oh, and by the way, we'll resend out the schedule with the correction.
Thank you very much. So our next
Larry
meeting,
Gerard,
is scheduled for February 1st.
Debbie, Larry may have had a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Larry.
Not a question, a comment to tie on to what Ann said. The fire service is in exactly the same crisis right now. It's not unusual to hear fire departments getting toned out 3 and 4 times, and mutual aid being attempted to call in to cover them. So this is not just limited to EMS. It's something that perhaps we need to work on teaming up with all the emergency services and get this out that, yeah, we all need help.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any comments for the good of the organization? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Dave,
Second, Larry.
seconded by Larry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Everybody stay safe.
Thanks,